Welcome to the very first episode of the Pandemic Job Hunt podcast. This podcast aims to break down key techniques and to uncover the industry secrets to help you stand out in getting a job during this once-in-a-lifetime pandemic we are living in. And I am your host, Andrew Barry. I am very proud to announce that the very first guest on the Pandemic Job Hunt podcast is Edward Johnson. He is the founder and CEO of Iconic Limited and is currently working on data science and blockchain projects. Edward is currently based out of Toronto, Canada. However, he comes from the land of England, and before moving to the city, he had an extensive finance career in Germany and Switzerland and is also the former CTO of AIG Private Bank Limited. From his executive and management experience, he really enjoys mentoring others and is the current lead for the Toronto chapter of the Project Management Institute's Career Accelerator program. I had a really good conversation with Edward on job hunting during a pandemic. He has a lot of great techniques and insights and is a big believer in mastering the craft of storytelling. So stay tuned. So, hi, Edward. Welcome to the Pandemic Job Hunt podcast.
Hi, Andrew. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well. I'm really glad that you're on the show today.
Pleased to be
we
here.
have a lot to talk about. We're going to talk about job hunting during the pandemic.
Cool.
And let's start off with you. How you've been doing lately? What are you up to lately?
I've been doing. I've been building a few things in terms of systems, building relationships. I just got a new puppy in the last few months, so that's taking up that's taking up some pandemic time as well. Doing okay, not okay with the stuff that's been happening in the news.
Yes.
I even got stopped by the police this morning. Which just for rolling over a stop sign, very, very slowly. But that was pretty traumatic, just waiting for the police. But generally, coping and working.
Yeah.
hard.
Did you see the NBA strike yesterday?
I think the guys are right.
Yeah.
It's okay to wear a t-shirt and to do all of that stuff, but at some point, then attention needs to be taken away from games and through to people actually dying.
Yeah.
So they're right. Do it for some time or even completely.
Yeah, when I saw that the NBA, the Milwaukee Bucks just not going onto court, I was like, wow, this is a very powerful statement in itself.
And I love those guys, but
but
it's more than basketball.
They are resuming the games, I think, on Friday or Saturday.
Yeah, so I heard.
It was a good statement, though. A lot of conversation, on social media about it, and I think it was very powerful. They really put their money on where their mouth is, essentially.
Yeah. I actually spoke to somebody this morning who was from a reputable university about what they've been trying to change, and I'm really encouraged about that. But what we know is it is a slog. It's not, in the papers and out. This is real life. It goes on and on.
Well, all right. So tell me a little bit more, going back to the show's topic, tell me a little bit more about how has your career been affected since the start of the pandemic and what's going on there? What have changed in terms of like your approach to your career, in terms of networking or building on something? Like, tell me more from your perspective.
So when the pandemic hit back in February, at least here in Toronto, I just come back from London and I got very, very sick. And I was tested for COVID even in very early March. I had a couple of hackathons that were planned that I had to cancel because, firms were saying we can't do this anymore, so you don't get the space. And slowly but surely, we all fell into this kind of pandemic situation. And that also, I noticed, big areas like 111 closing with 50 firms all at once, these big tech firms, startups. I've been involved in the startup world, and these firms, one by one, were just, stopping, following.
I did not expect 111 to shut down that quickly. I think they shut down like within a month of
Oh, yeah,
the
it was
lockdown.
faster than that. Yeah,
It was
it was
it
really
was really
quick.
fast.
Yeah, yeah. So I know.
I
I
guess
mean, there
their
was
business model is a bit different for like a co-working space.
sure, sure,
111.
sure. But we've also been to co-working spaces like
Yeah.
one that I won't name, but we've been, even you and I together, I think. So
Yes.
so I think, everything just changed rapidly. And in terms of a career search, I had to, take some downtime. I think
Mm-hmm.
it was about a week or two after I was very, very sick with the COVID or
Mm-hmm.
equivalent. I took a week and I said, I have to just take some time to think about what am I going to do. And I heard a lot of people, feeling pretty bad and so on. And I said, you know what? I think this could be an opportunity. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I think the next 3 months at least are going to be tough for everybody. And I
Yeah.
decided then, I think it was late March, or even early April. I said I'm going to build stuff. I'm going to actually try and take this by the horns and try and build things that I haven't built before, and try and get on with people that I haven't got on before. I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to be the contrarian. That's what I felt at that time, and I didn't expect to find a job during that, let's say, the next 8 weeks. So I said I want to use that time for something else.
Yes, I really like your approach. There was hiring freezes across the board on all industries. People were losing their jobs left and right within the first 3 months of the pandemic, and it's obviously a very unfortunate place to be in if you are transitioning your career or you just don't have a job in the moment. It really does seem like it could be a little bit hopeless to an
Yeah,
extent.
yeah,
However, I remember early in the pandemic, I was listening to a podcast, and in that podcast, they talked about choosing a live time versus dead time in relation
yeah,
to the pandemic. And the anecdote they referenced was the fact that people in history have been quarantined, have been in lockdown before during the Black Plague, for example.
sure.
Did you know that William Shakespeare, during the Black Plague, where he had to be locked down in his own home, he wrote a good bunch of his famous plays that we know today? And the concept of choosing a live time versus dead time is okay, see this as opportunity.
Yeah.
What can you make the most of this time in this moment?
That's exactly. I didn't know that about Shakespeare, and I
Yeah, it's a
love the
really cool
stuff.
fact. Yeah.
I love the stuff he does, but I don't know all of the stuff around him.
Yeah.
But I can really relate to that, because I think actually being very ill early in March and having one of the first COVID tests in Canada made me think, I could have died. So
Mm.
now I need to live. I need to do something.
Wow.
Um, and we live in a house. We have a garden, so we were pretty isolated, but comfortable enough during that time to stay isolated. So we said, let's do something, and that's where
Mhm.
I think it was that moment. And I believe that if I hadn't been as sick as I was, I probably wouldn't have taken the same approach.
Mm. It's
Yeah.
interesting. I did not know that when you got sick earlier, which you weren't tested positive for COVID at all. Didn't know that was had a big impact in your life and your
Yeah,
viewpoint
I
back
was
then.
I was tested negative, but
Hmm.
my family doctor said, you know what, looking at the symptoms and all of those other things
Mm.
you had, and the fact that the false negatives were 35%, she said,
Oh,
yeah, yeah,
wow! I
at
did not
that
know that.
time, 35%. And so she said, you can assume that you probably had it, for sure, with
Wow.
all the symptoms. And I've never felt that bad in my life anyway.
Mm.
But okay, instead of so that's that was an episode,
Yeah.
but it galvanized me after I was fit
Mhm.
to really
So
try and say to build things.
I guess in the time where you're building things, it's also like I guess the fact that we are living in the year 2020. There's so many tools and digital tools. It's so much easier to build stuff, to connect with people, to gain information. What tools and connections did you build or utilize during the first 3 months or even till now? Would you say?
Yeah, so getting into various communities, Slack became very big, and I was using Slack all the time. I think I was involved in 6 or 7 communities at that time, and then individuals within those communities. I wrote a few articles on LinkedIn to help me to get through this, but also to help others. I think I wrote an article, for instance, about staying fit and healthy during the pandemic time, how to do a desk look and so on. There were a number of people to roast, but I needed to do that as well. And so LinkedIn, just using LinkedIn overall was great. I started to use WhatsApp a lot more to contact people, whether family abroad or also here. I was using WhatsApp before mainly for technical kind of things and just keeping on trend with people in the blockchain community. But this time, it went more personal. So I was using those kind of tools. I wasn't a TikTok guy before, but of course I had a look into TikTok as well.
Before the pandemic, there was a huge emphasis that people now in their careers have to really spend a lot of time digitally branding themselves, putting themselves out there. Yeah. And now that we are in a pandemic, that is more true than ever, or because we can't go and meet with people, in a conference, we can't connect with people, offline. We have to think of new ideas, new ways to put yourself out there and connect with other people. And you mentioned that you spent a lot of time writing LinkedIn articles, building projects. Did you find by doing that, were you able to connect with new people? And what recommendations would you have for someone who is not that, I guess, or who's a little bit shy in terms of putting themselves out there and putting their own thoughts out there? Okay,
so I've got a few things. I actually wrote a bit before, but not that much. And I think that if I just take the people who are shy, I am part introvert, although I seem extrovert. Nobody wants to be shown to make mistakes or to expose too much. But I think, and I really took it on that now is the time actually to expose more. Because I believe that when you're searching for a job, you have to make yourself appear to be different from the others. If you all have equal skills, what makes you different? And so I believe that writing and exposing or going on to Zoom conferences, and when you're in a Zoom conference or an event, actually writing something, communicating with the speakers in that time, I decided to do that. So if you've been on any of the conferences or any of those things that I've been on at the same time, you'll have seen that, one of the 20 people who've written something in the chat channel would be me, because and that's actually helped to connect with people for other subjects, for job related things as well. I've actually built friends through just doing that, and hearing, after a chat, maybe that, a conference, someone reaches out on LinkedIn and said, "Hey, I really liked that comment that you wrote. I was thinking that, but I didn't write it." And then you have a conversation. And then eventually it gets further. And that's happened to me with a few people. So
do you think it's easier to put yourself out there on a digital space versus offline space, since you're behind a screen or whatnot? Or
no, I think it's not. I mean, it goes with your personality. It isn't easy in the digital world because we have the contrast of Facebook, where people say anything they like and they don't care. And when we come to something which is more of a more business-like social platform that might impact your career, you have to actually be more authentic. And sometimes it's difficult to be authentic.
How do you be more authentic on a digital space? I find it very hard sometimes, especially on LinkedIn, since everyone on LinkedIn is very formalized and whatnot. And, there's a general focus on the positives and on every little thing. How do you really make yourself sound a little bit more authentic in your own words?
Okay, so I think that authenticity is not done in one or two tweets or one or two comments. It's done, over time. Maybe you say, "Hey, I'm gonna look at 4 or 5 people every day. and or their comments, and I'm going to comment on those. But I'm going to say something it doesn't have to be complimentary, but ideally it should be complimentary or neutral.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you're going to be not complimentary, give a contrasting idea
Mm-hmm.
that might also be useful for them. It should be about the other one that you're communicating to.
Mm-hmm.
And then over time, people will see that actually this is who you are.
Mm-hmm.
One, you have opinions. Two, you're not a mean person. And three, you really can engage with other people over time. Again, over time is really important. And
I've noticed on your LinkedIn that you spend a lot of time engaging and commenting on other threads and platforms. Walk me through like your life in a day in terms of like your LinkedIn usage. Like, how do you approach that? Because
I'm not a LinkedIn junkie, but
no, but like I definitely on my LinkedIn feed, I see you are very active compared to most people in my network. What do you do?
Yeah. So of course, there things will pop up for me in the morning, in the early morning, or late at night. Those are the two times I might have a quick look at some articles. There are some people I follow, and then I maybe have an opinion, and I'll put in a one-liner. I mean, this morning, I think yesterday or the day before, I wrote something about toasters and refrigerators getting together in security and stealing Bitcoin from the owner. So, and that's a security guy that I know that I once spoke with, and he often puts out articles. So, that took me 5 minutes. It wasn't very long, but it keeps the conversation going. But it also, I link with him in that way, and he may have a look at what I'm doing. Similarly, on the AI side, if I see something that's interesting to do with GANs or with NLP, I will definitely read through. I'll take 20 minutes in a day and read through some articles.
Okay.
And then I'll see who is commenting, and because I often don't want to be the first one to comment, but I will, throw something in that might be relevant to that. I'll give another example. There was something to do with Airbnb parties the other day, and I've actually had a house where it's been a bit wrecked for an Airbnb.
Oh.
Yeah,
that's a whole debate in itself. Should we ban people under 25 to rent?
No, we shouldn't. No, and I think we shouldn't. I think there's a business niche for Airbnb to say, hey, do you have a house that you don't mind renting out, and people will pay a high rate for that to be a party house? So I wrote that in there. Okay. I think I had over 50 likes or comments to do with what I said. But it took me 3 minutes to write that. And things to do with diversity and equity, I also might make a few comments on, because as a black man, I also get affected every now and then. But I want to battle that and make the world a better place by giving good comment and not just being angry. I think it's important to contribute in that way.
Do you also use Twitter?
I do, but not as much.
I've recently, I would say in the past couple months, fallen in love with Twitter. I've had Twitter, for 10 years already. However, it was not a platform I really enjoyed or really engaged with. However, during the pandemic, I started engaging it with a lot more, following a lot more thought leaders and people in the various spaces I'm very interested in. And I find Twitter to be an amazing platform to gain advice, be inspired, and contribute to a conversation. It's a little bit more casual than LinkedIn, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's more casual,
and I was reading this one tweet that really made me think. It said that Twitter is now a resume for your thoughts, and I think it's more important these days now, since we are at home. One way we can engage in the public and the world is by tweeting about things, contributing to ideas, showing basically your little thought trails, and it is a way to show that you're active and you're interested in this space, and you're trying to gain more knowledge. And the idea that Twitter could be, I guess, if you use it in a very professional way, a resume for your thoughts, really intrigued me. And I think it is true, because when you're putting yourself out there and putting more content out there, you want to, I guess, it's just part of your developing your personal brand and of who you are, like you said.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. I actually am a split personality.
Mm-hmm.
I use Twitter for my personal interests like sport,
Mm-hmm.
and photography and all of the hobby type of things or the fun things. I use Twitter for that.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe some political comment, but not too much.
Mm-hmm.
And LinkedIn I use more for other things,
Mm-hmm.
which are more business. But I do also do a bit of Twitter. I've been on Twitter since the very beginning, and I also see it as a barometer for people's thoughts to an extent.
Yeah.
But I also don't want to be on one platform like constantly during the day. And Twitter is something that would suck me in. And this is why I've kind of resisted for it for the business side. But I've also been involved with business conferences on Twitter, Ask Me Anythings and that kind of thing. And it can be really, really useful.
Yeah. I find Twitter these days a lot more inspiring than LinkedIn in terms of getting new ideas. I guess because it's a little bit more immediate. People can think of a tweet, where like people who engage with LinkedIn, they have a little bit more thought towards like what they want to post and connect. So it's a little bit more like immediate information that I can get that if I want to look for something.
Yeah.
And I think, for example, like tech Twitter and VC Twitter, I think is a lot more bigger on Twitter than the conversation there than I would say on LinkedIn.
Absolutely. I think that LinkedIn, since Microsoft took them over, are still trying to find their place.
Yeah.
They, of course, would like to absorb millions and millions and millions of people and all of the social chat, but they can't compete with Facebook and Twitter in that respect. And they need to find the balance between hoovering up everybody and hoovering up all of the opinions. And I don't think they've got that right yet. They need time.
Yeah, I think, I don't know what the future of LinkedIn is, but I definitely think they haven't really evolved that much in the past 3-4 years. It's been very like same, like you use it.
But they do have a lot of data about people.
They do have a lot. Yeah.
And I think that's something that one of the reasons why Microsoft bought them is to change the jobs, make jobs go to people rather people going to jobs. That was their idea.
Anyways, so let's talk about job hunting during this pandemic. You've mentioned that you have to build a lot more applications since you're in data science and AI. That means expanding your data science portfolio, working on whatever projects related to the field. How about reaching out? Do you reach out to recruiters and actively try to connect with them, and what's your strategy for that?
Okay, I think it depends on the field that you're in as to how you need to do that. I reach out to certain recruiters, but on a personal basis. That's me personally. I try to do that because recruiters are really busy and they work for their clients. And I totally get that. I never believe that, a recruiter can be a true friend who's only going to find you, the one person, a job, because that's not their job. And I'm realistic about that. But I have reached out to a few. Some have helped me, with transitioning, doing stuff with my resume, making my resume from, let's say, very chronological into something that's more functional, to say, what am I doing right now rather than what did I do 10, 20 years ago? And then giving an honest view about that. So it's important to reach out to recruiters on a personal basis, but not to expect too much.
So you're trying to make a genuine connection with this recruiter.
Absolutely. I think I have like 3 that I genuinely have a good connection to, who will be honest.
Well, it's an employer's market these days. There's so many people unemployed. What would you say are some tips for someone to stand out when they shoot a LinkedIn message to a recruiter?
Okay, so I'm
What
really,
do you do? Yeah.
What do I do?
That you find out has been working for you?
I go direct.
Yeah.
I actually do. I look through my network and see who can introduce me.
Okay.
That's the first thing I do. I will look in my network and say, okay, you know this person or that director or whatever at that company or that startup. Can you just tell them a bit about me? And if they open the door, then I'm going to send that person a direct message, and I'm usually very honest in my message. I'll say, I can send you a resume which covers most of the points that you're after. But if you are willing to talk to me, I can give you something that isn't on the resume.
Okay.
And that's more of a personal touch, because I can actually tell you what's more important for, at least from my point of view, what's important for me to bring to you. And that isn't always about, do you know JavaScript or
for sure.
Language X, Y, or Z. There's got to be more to that within a team. And that's what I try to bring.
Okay. So, on one end, there is, for example, if you're looking for a specific company you want to like apply for, or, have a discussion with, and, if you have a mutual connection, that's an easy way in. However, sometimes you look at a company, you realize you have no connection at all, no secondary connection or third connection. What do you do? Do you try to network directly to recruiter, or do you network within like some employee within a certain team and try to ask for their thoughts?
Yeah, sometimes you don't have someone, but I look at it from, what have I done? Maybe I've been to an event and I've met someone who isn't in that company, but maybe knows people in that company. Or I look in my kind of hobby network, the kind of things I do, if it's being a soccer fan or being a photography fan or being a baseball fan. I might know, for instance, an accountant who works for Big Bank X. And I already have a connection with them. It's not through LinkedIn, but I have a connection that is a real connection as a person. And I might say, look, can you spend a few minutes and try and find me a way into that company? Or can you look into your network to see if you know someone who is in a company that you're not at, but that I want to go to? Can you find me a way? Or and again, there are still many, many events which cover wide areas and a wide number of companies. So it's possible to go to an AI event which has maybe 30 companies there, and look through the guests and find out, someone to get a connection. And I'm direct, I'll say, we're in a pandemic. I don't have time to waste. So I'm going to ask you not to advocate for me, but just to tell me if you know someone useful who is an open type of person that I can have an information interview with.
Okay. So you want to score that information informal interview or conversation, which is an informal interview. And
always, everything's an interview.
Everything is an interview. I think when I was looking for a job, that was a very important. Try to find that informal interview first. Usually have a little casual conversation. It's a great way to get it in.
Yes. Have a coffee, which we can't do now, unfortunately.
Having a real life coffee is so much better than a virtual coffee. And I think it also, what happens, the fact that we're behind like a digital screen, I think a lot of times if you're on the receiving end, it's so much easier to ignore a request to have a conversation.
Absolutely. Yeah. I've had requests come through to me on LinkedIn from people from all over the world saying, you have X thousand connections. I want to join your group. And I look at it but there is something, this is a side note, but something about me is I believe that when you try and connect with someone, I love to have a genuine connection with people. And that means you have to ask them a question or tell them something. Come with something in your hand. And if you can do that, it's a really nice start. And in fact, I've had LinkedIn requests come to me, and I've actually sent the people back saying, can you ask me something? And we've actually then had discussions. And there's, for instance, a guy in London that I'm now connected with. And it was pretty adversarial for the first few comments, but then we actually are connected now. And we are looking at each other's articles, and he's an interesting person.
Interesting. I find myself when trying to connect with someone on LinkedIn, but to get information on a certain topic or company, I realize, people love talking about themselves in
Totally.
general. So
Yes.
sometimes my approach is I want to ask them about their story and how they
Yes.
got to where they are in that position. And, and when they do accept, it's very lovely to like have them tell how they got to their position. Because when they tell that story, generally there's like a lot of like little nuggets of information you can get in terms of like how they approach this and stuff like that.
Yeah. That's a really good way of doing it as well. Not necessarily, if they're experienced, they might not appreciate being flattered too much.
Yeah.
But most people can't resist it.
Yeah, I would ask them like how they got to their position. And I would also tell them like honestly, like I'm looking to get more information in this field, or like I'm a young professional in this field.
Yeah.
And just showing that you're honest and humble, I think really helps them. I guess when they look at their LinkedIn requests, maybe they'll pick you over some generic connection someone just sent.
Absolutely, yeah.
That
because you've reached
touch,
out. Yeah, reaching out with a personal touch is brilliant, and then genuine personal touch. And I think this is a pandemic time. It is time to be genuine and to be authentic because everybody's stressed.
Everyone is
so stressed. To have some truth come to you, someone who's actually coming in as genuine is a great thing than just as someone who's coming and saying, "Give me X, give me Y, give me what."
So, what would you say an advice you would give to recruiters when they're dealing with thousands of applications? Because I've started to notice on LinkedIn there's like a slow negative backlash in terms of how recruiters are treating their applicants in a way like ghosting them or promise an interview then don't follow up. And I've noticed that a lot more in the past 3 months. What are your thoughts on that? And give me some reasons why you think that is happening.
Well, before I came to Toronto, I was recruiting people for my teams that I had. So I built relationships with recruiters. And I think it's important that hiring managers actually do build relationships, meaning the recruiter should always ask them, not just give me a list of the skills you want, but actually spend 10 minutes to talk to them and say, what kind of person do you want? What kind of work ethic do you want? Do you want someone efficient? Do you want someone who's slow but very steady? Do you want this? Do you want that? But ask, it doesn't take long to ask someone, a hiring manager, what do they actually really need? Instead of just reducing everybody to a list of buzzwords. That's what I would say to any recruiter. Go the extra mile as to the hiring manager to find out what do they need, because you've got humans that you're recruiting for that position, and those people that you recruit are going to be in a human team. So it's got to be more than a numbers game. That's the message I would give to recruiters. I know their job is really, really hard.
I'm sure, yeah.
And that they can only read the first, 10 lines of every resume. But I think they should also try and educate candidates to say, this is the way I read a resume. Because, if you know how a recruiter reads a resume, then you can make sure that you put in the information that's going to make you stand out in that area. I was told by one that I know, please write everything that's important in the first, 30% of the page.
Okay.
And the rest is to back that up. Okay. But if you do that, then you have a better chance. That's what they said to me.
So the first 30%, like the first top half, third is the most important.
Yeah. The first third of the page is the most important. That's one tip, but that's from one recruiter. Maybe another recruiter will say, I don't want to see anything more than one page or anything more than 2 pages, or I don't care about your education. That can go at the end. Another will say, I need to know your top level of education on the very first page. and stuff like that. But it's not consistent across recruiters. That's a real problem for candidates. They don't know how that's going to be.
And that's also going to be different for each, industry, from tech to finance.
Absolutely. It can vary a lot. What I think would be useful, though, is one of the things is to join a professional association. Okay. So, for instance, I'm part of PMI, the Project Management Institute of Toronto. And, there are people, whether mentors or others, who they have experience. And we also, know some recruiters who have experience and can, really say, if you want to be a project manager for company X, this is the way you should really try and build your resume for them. If you're a young person, you should be doing this. If you're a, kind of transitioner, do that. And if you're an older one, do this. And so I think it can be very industry specific, but two, it can also be, if you have a good association to go to, they can help.
And we live in the city of Toronto. There's a lot of great association and I guess collectives of
everything. They're all there.
Yeah.
They're all there. You have to reach out to them. I was speaking with someone a few days ago who'd been here for a year as a project manager and hadn't reached out to their project management institute branch.
Okay.
They just hadn't, and they were too shy. They didn't think it. So I think you got to really fire on all the cylinders, and this is pandemic times. Take your chance. That's how I see it.
So your advice is to just go for it. You have nothing to lose. Just put yourself out there, and hopefully someone will catch your attention or something, or someone will catch your attention.
Yeah, I would go further and say time. Before we know it, it will be 6 months since the beginning of the pandemic, and you have to look back and say, that was a really tough 6 months. What did I do? And if you've been unemployed for that 6 months, you got to be thinking, what did I build?
Yeah.
Or who did I network with? And if those answers are zero, then, you could have done, it's better to go ahead and make some mistakes, especially now, rather than to do nothing.
That's true.
That's what I would say. Build something badly. It's better than building nothing. Sending out 500 resumes, it doesn't help if you're sending out the same kind of thing and you're getting the same kind of response. You have get better advice, change things.
Constantly engage, build something, and send out, and always constantly tweak your resume.
Tweaking is the watchword. Yeah. And get feedback. Try and get as much feedback as you can. I look at it this way. We don't have to commute anywhere, most of us now. We work from home. So we got an extra 2 hours per day, some of us, to tweak or to read LinkedIn articles, you might say, or to do other useful things. It could be Netflix time, but we could actually use that to try and make mistakes during that time, but fail forward kind of thing.
Okay. So what would you say for someone who, just graduated into this pandemic versus someone who's transitioning their career, or versus someone who's, a little bit later on in their career in terms of looking for a job, since, these are like 3 different levels. Some people with no experience, some people with maybe less than 3-4 years experience, and some who have 20 years of experience. What tips would you give to these types of folks for being in this pandemic?
3 different. These are 3 different types, but I could say generally one tip for which fits all of them is try 2 types of volunteering.
Volunteering.
One is, volunteering is really useful.
I agree.
So one is find your passion. Something that not necessarily is your work, but is socially or otherwise a passion. As I say, if I like sport, I built a hackathon around the sport I like. Or if I like photography, I go and meet other photographers. As you walk to take pictures, you talk. You are networking. So build something that keeps, do something that keeps you interested as a volunteer.
Okay.
Secondly, of course, volunteer in some way or form that's to do with your profession. and everyone can find a way. If you build websites, then go and do that for social good. If you're a project manager, do the same. If you're a tech person who is, doing data science, go and do it for someone. It doesn't have to be all for money, but take your 3-4 hours a week and do something which is going to help you network. It's going to keep you busy, and so on. So that's a general for all three.
Okay.
Now, if I talk about the young people, a young person who's just come out, just graduated, it's tough. Of course, it's tough. But try and take a long-term approach. I would say try and think, okay, I know I need a job now, but try and think, where will I be in 2 years' time? And build to that 2-year span instead of thinking only immediate.
Okay.
Because 2 years is not long. If you've just graduated from, with your bachelor's and you need to get a master's, that's another 1.5 years on top. So if you're not going to go for the master's, you could also do something vocationally in the meantime. It doesn't have to be only online courses and so on. It could also be something like TaskRabbit for 10 hours a week, but that might not seem glamorous, but it gets you out of the house, or it gets you to do stuff for people, and it gets you to think of being a service-oriented person. It might, being a quality-oriented person. Those two factors are really important. It builds maturity in the workforce. So that's a very young professional who needs to get a job. Of course, have fun. And of course, keep going for your vocation. If you've done finance, then keep going, further. I would say that if you're someone who's older, or even the one who's in the middle area, you've got transformational skills. You've got transitional skills. You've got I look at it, take 7 things about yourself, or make 7 stories or 7 qualities. 7. Now, imagine you're going to an interview. You want to twist that interview, if you eventually get it, towards your strengths rather than away from your strengths. Let's say you think you're a great organizer. Then, build some stars to do with that. Build some historical things about that you can relate to, that really makes sense. And then relate those to the kind of job that you might be applying to, or to your cover letter. That's and take 7 things. Maybe you're a good organizer in your job. Maybe you're really good with onboarding people, or perhaps you're the one person who always looks at the risks of any project, and you've managed to save projects because you're that person, and so on. So each of those, I only mentioned 3. They each can have stories built around them where you're the star person. And when you do that, you can then really approach in a way jobs which makes it very unique to you, but fits that job. And you can also be very relevant in an interview.
Storytelling is a key skill for everyone across ages, across industries, to really succeed and put yourself out there. It's like selling, convincing people, and
but it's genuine. It's
authentic. I think on my resume, I actually put one of my skills is a great storyteller or something like that.
Well, here you are doing a podcast, so you're extending your skill to that. Yeah, of course. There was something I should say about young professionals. I speak to a lot of young professionals, and as part of the mentoring scheme that I run, and one of the things that they say. There's 2 things. One is imposter syndrome.
Oh, I get that.
Which we all have. We all have it.
We all have it.
Even, yeah. So I won't go for it. But the second thing is, I hear from, saying, I don't really have much to say. I haven't built anything. I haven't got a career yet. And I say to those people, yes, you do. Go back to your passions. You must be passionate about something. Hey, if you're someone who likes to have fun, then you probably have passion about something. There is something there in everyone that they can bring out, and they can say, if you're into maths and you say, I love numbers to the point that, I dream in numbers. I can build you anything with numbers. I am your numbers person. I am, and that's a talking point. Even if you're just like everyone else in your class, but if you come across like that and show that, it's your life is obsessed with numbers, and you make it fun, then I want to hire you. It's rather than someone says, yeah, I got a first degree and I'm great and I feel really good. Yeah, there's a difference.
So on top of really highlighting your passions, I think one thing you can add on that is like, if there's a specific field or thing you want to get into, for example, data science, and there's a topic you're passionate about, one thing you could do is like create a machine learning project around that topic that
absolutely
you have
end to
that
end.
You have a good, I would say, domain knowledge about it, and you can talk about it a lot more than some random machine learning project. That's one thing.
Yeah, I remember one of the colleagues. I was going to say our, but I won't do that on the show. One of the colleagues. I remember during a data science course that I underwent, and he came up with something, and I was like, wow. He came up with Pokemon cards. And he had a great set of models around Pokemon cards. And I was like, these are cartoon cards for kids. But actually, he said, look, I really love these since I was like a 5-year-old. And now is my chance to show something about Pokemon, but for AI and machine learning. And he with his 5 or 10 minute talk, he captured me. And so that's something, he brought it out, that said, if this person was in another team, they have the passion and not only that, they have the thoroughness to get a job done from end to end. And that's more than reading all the books that you get given on the course and passing all the exams. He did something that was about him and what he liked and brought it in with relevance. And I think that's a really important point. I think that everyone can try to do.
It also makes your experience of building that a lot more enjoyable, since something that you're passionate about in general.
Totally. Bring that to the team, bring that to the table, I think every employer, as I said, I've also been a hiring manager in my past life. It's horrible to have 400 resumes on the table and having to go through them and thinking, what's different, even at interview stage. So if you can bring all the skills like everyone else, but bring an extra touch, it's going to make you stand out.
So soft skills still matter.
Soft skills matter more than anything else. Yes. I'm not even laughing about that, but yes, soft skills matter.
That's great to hear.
They matter the most. But usually the way that the recruiting systems are set up, it makes it more as if they don't matter. But
especially with
they do matter.
What are those systems that kind of like auto-analyze
ATS
systems?
ATS.
Like, do you have the right buzzwords and stuff like that? And,
yeah. That's a lazy. That is maybe I shouldn't say lazy. That's when recruitment, the system is overwhelmed, totally overwhelmed, and that's why I say if you can find a way of going direct and making an impression, you got another chance to get through screening and get into the. So
essentially,
of the
nowadays,
building.
Finding a job during pandemic, you have to be a little bit extra creative around putting yourself out there. Since one, it's an employer's market. There's a lot of people looking for jobs. I sometimes I look at like job posts on LinkedIn and I see like within the past 2 days over 500 applicants. Like, wow, that's crazy.
Yes. It's discouraging. It's horrible.
Yeah. And sometimes I ask, like, man, I don't have that much experience. Should I put myself out there, or should I just should I apply, or should I find a different strategy to get my resume in the door? And that's why you have to be creative, connect with people, engage with people. This is why I'm doing this podcasting session, is to connect and engage with people in general.
Absolutely. I think one of the things that is also important is I think it's to chunk our lives. It's not just okay. So I didn't get that job this time, and therefore I'm just going to keep going every day. I think if you have a plan of, let's say, 2 months or 4 months or so on. something where you can chunk that up and say, right, in 2 months, if I haven't got a job, I will have done also X. I will have built portfolio component X at the same time, so that you have various waves of different things running in parallel. One, of course, is the job hunting with applications. 2 is the networking. Perhaps 3 is you're building something. The 4 may be about your profile and your own personal branding. Those things, and they run in parallel, but you have to have some kind of milestones to say, well, I need to do this by that time. And if I fail with job hunting, well, at least I know that, during that last 2 months, I gained 10 people who are useful in my network. And I built project 1 and 2 with person
you have to
X,
count
Y,
your
Z.
little wins. Yeah. And I think at the end of the day, those connections you built, maybe a year or 2 from now, you will rely on them. You can ask them again. It's great to always constantly expand your network, especially if you've built a genuine connection with someone else. And it's more important these days, that person is going to be more likely to help you out down the line.
Absolutely, yeah. Always bring somebody. I say always bring somebody something. There are a lot of people who just ask, give me this or help me out for that, but they're not giving you. I'm not saying it has to be an exchange, but I'm saying if you can go to somebody with something, it's better than going empty-handed.
I had one person when I first moved to Toronto when I was starting out here tell me about their networking philosophy. They believed in the idea of giving more to your network than receiving from your network. So
I agree with
for
that.
them, how they found useful was they are willing to help out almost anyone who wants to get in touch with them, or at least make time for as many people as they can. Because when she told me, believed that just giving more to your network will pay a lot more dividends down the line span of if you think about it long term. And I really took that to heart, and I really try my best to make an authentic connection when networking, and also have in my mind, to not expect anything from them. Just make a genuine connection.
Yes.
And I think that's very important. Well, I think
I agree. I agree with that. Give more than you receive. Perhaps you will receive. Well, as you build up a relationship over time, it evens out.
That's true.
Normally.
Yeah. Well, I think you and I have covered a lot of topics, and we've had a lot of great discussion here. So I really want to thank you for being on the show.
It's been my pleasure. I really enjoyed that.
We have to wrap it up soon, or else the show will be too long. However, as for all my guests, I'm giving you a 30 to a minute plug in terms of like what you want to talk about, anything you're up to these days. So you have the floor.
Well, I should start by saying I am a black man, and I believe in changing the system from the inside out. And I'm determined to be one of the leaders in AI, someone who can help you to change the way that you build your AI systems, learn about your AI systems, both in hard skills and in soft skills, diversify your team, but for the right reasons as well. This is what my intention is to do. I want to be a pioneer. I have been a pioneer in Germany, starting off there and having to learn the language from scratch, and eventually becoming a CTO in a medium-sized bank. So I believe that anything is possible. And I want to demonstrate to you, to the people, that you need to take on people that can help you to broaden your perspectives, not just for the skills that you need tomorrow, but also for the next 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, that will help you build. And that's why, I'm even on the show, I guess, because I want to do that. I'll give some drive, and I will also make sure that, there's a really strong commitment. It's not just like saying I work hard. People who know me will know that I really take on things with a passion. especially if they're doing good things. I want to be involved in that and get it done.
Very good.
So, yes, if you want to speak to me, I'm building AI and blockchain systems together with people. And I'll do that for you as well.
Amazing. And are you willing for my listeners to connect with you?
Absolutely. Of course you can connect with me. When you do connect with me, ask me a question. But before you do that, have a look at my LinkedIn. You'll see more about my story there and the other things that I do.
Thank you, Edward. See you later.
Hey, it's been a pleasure.
All right. Bye-bye. This is the end of the show. Thank you for tuning into the Pandemic Job Hunt podcast. As always, I would love to get feedback, so don't hesitate to get in touch through my Twitter at Andrew H.N. Barry or LinkedIn. If you would like to be a guest on my show, you can find the guest form on the website pandemicjobhunt.com. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. See you next time.